Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, hopefully having an amazing day. Bigger isn't actually always better, at least according to AMD anyway. And we're going to be discussing how this pertains to Navi 31 in just a moment, along with discussion of a very interesting PCB image, or rather a diagram of a PCB of Navi 31 as well. There are some very interesting clues here for the specification of the GPU, and a lot of stuff has been confirmed. And of course, we're going to discuss some other bits and pieces as well. But, as always, that's after this message from the video's sponsor. If you're running a copy of Windows 10 which isn't activated, of course, not only do you have to worry about the missing customization options, but there's also that annoying Windows desktop watermark reminding you to activate. Today's video is sponsored by whokeys.com, and they have an excellent price on Windows 10 Professional as well as Home keys. Yeah, and they also of course sell games. I've bought a few Windows 10 keys with my own personal account to test everything was legit and worked in preparation for this sponsored video. You can pick up one of their keys for 25% off using the coupon code RGT in the checkout. There's links to their website in the video description. Also, if you're building a few systems, there's bundles available too. Again, you can check out whokeys.com and use the coupon code RGT for 25% off the listed Windows 10 key prices. Bigger doesn't necessarily mean better, according to Sasa Marinkovic. Now, obviously, at the end of the day, he probably has a fairly good understanding of the technical specification, given who he is, of AMD's RDNA 3 lineup of cards. Now, there are two things that this could potentially be in reference to RDNA 3. The first is the die size. We actually have a good understanding now of what the die size is for both Nvidia's RTX 40 series as well as AMD's Navi 31, not least of which because of a leaked PCB image. Basically, roughly speaking, there's 100 mm squared, difference between the two, but I think it's more likely to instead mean infinity cache. So Navi 21, so for example the 6800 XT and so on, they all featured 128 megabytes, whereas Navi 31 seems to only have 96 megabytes, or up to 192 if you're utilizing a Vcache variant. Now those figures are from SkyJuice, and I do think that they are correct. Most of the other specifications I actually had quite a while ago, and if you've been a regular viewer, you'll know that I put them on the channel multiple times, but the one spec I could not nail down was the infinity cache. I'd heard 192 as well as 384, but again, I was hearing that it was most likely on the smaller side. And then when I finally asked one of my sources, who was being very cagey to be honest, of what the spec actually was, they eventually confirmed that SkyJuice's figure were right, and I was very surprised 96 megabytes was the correct figure. I mean, logically, if you just kind of take it on face value, 128, you're doubling roughly the performance of the GPU. How does that make any sense for it only to be 96 megabytes? Well, basically, it had been explained to me anyway, that the way that the infinity cache is handled on RDNA 3 is significantly improved in terms of the way data is stored on the GPU. It's a lot more pertinent. Basically, there seems to be better data compression and a lot of other factors which kind of go into the fact that, yeah, 96 megabytes is okay. I was also told that the Vcache variants, which again is 192 megabytes versus 96, just don't make that much difference. I'm going to be interested, to be honest with you, just to see AMD confirm this stuff when they finally do announce RDNA 3 officially. One thing as well, I think I mentioned this in another video, I think it was yesterday's for Nvidia. I have been hearing some rumors that the 7900 XT has quite a big specification gap between it and the 7800 series. I haven't had it confirmed yet, so I don't want to put figures out in case I get screenshotted and, you know, that's the kind of figure that people put around, but I have been hearing that. Again, at this point, there are so many questions regarding RDNA 3, including the performance figures, but we are now starting to build a pretty good understanding of what these GPUs actually are like, not least of which because Igor's lab recently have gotten a diagram for what is claimed to be the 7900 XT. Now, at the end of the day, this could be fake, but to give Igor a lot of credit, his stuff is usually pretty bang on, so I have a pretty high amount of faith that this is an actual leaked image. And you can see that we have a number of things here confirmed, quote unquote, because at the end of the day, AMD themselves have not gone on stage and announced the stuff. The first is that 24 gigabytes of GDR6 memory is mentioned. Now, that makes sense and does also lend a ton of credibility to the 6 MCD figures that myself and others had leaked. Basically speaking, this is 12 GDR6 modules, and of course, each MCD can basically act as a controller for 2 of them. Further thing that is very interesting actually is the power configuration. In particular, you'll notice that there are free, or I think that's German for free, and this is like I think this is like, you know, everywhere else is that, and I think German's that. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, what was I saying? My brain's gone blank. Oh yeah, there we go. So basically, there are 3 8-pin power connectors on the PCB, and this, at the end of the day, it could be an older design. It could be that this is not true anymore. For all we know, it's a single, it's a single 8-pin power connector. But most realistically, I do think this is true. You'll also notice that there are 24 phases for the power delivery as well, which is another pretty good sign that, well, energy is going to be gobbled. Furthermore, we have some confirmation regarding the sizes of the actual dies. So, the GCD is just over 300 mm squared, and you can see that the MCDs are going to be 37.5 mm squared each. So in total, that's just under 540 mm squared total. Now, what I will mention is that in the presumed board design, we see 3 6+2 sockets instead of 12 VHP-WR. I'll leave it open whether it's a 5.0 connector. However, this also limits the maximum board power of the card to 450 watts, whereas the actual TBP should be far below that. It's going to be interesting to see whether this is actually true or not, because at the end of the day, there have been so many figures which have associated with N31. I've personally heard 350 watt for the flagship card. I've also heard 375 as well as 395 watts. The fact is, it's a little difficult to know because one of those figures could have been correct and then it got changed, you know, as the design got closer to launch. It's also possible that one figure is correct, but then so is the other one because it's just a different SKU, especially when we also have Vcache variants as well. For example, the same specification of the 7900 XT could be true, but there could also be a Vcache variant which has a higher power consumption. Again, I don't know for fact, because no one's 100% certain how any of this stuff works. It's going to be very interesting to see how AMD price all of these cards as well. I think prices for the next generation are going to be really interesting. I've heard a couple of different people that I speak to, one with quite close ties to AIBs. They tell me that it's probably going to be, you know, for the 4090 around $1,500–1,600 US. And possibly for the 1490 Ti, it's going to be the low $2,000 US. The RTX 4080 is probably going to be, you know, let's say 900-ish bucks. And then obviously you can go down the stack. And a couple of people have been telling me roughly those prices, give or take like $100 either side. I personally, at this stage, don't believe any prices for the RTX 40 series because even if, let's say for the sake of discussion, let's just 100% say that the prices are $1,500 US, $800 US, $700 US going down the SKUs. Now, I'm not saying that's what I was told. Let's just hypothetically say that. Jensen, last minute, you know, 12 hours before the event, could be like, nah, actually, I'm changing all of this. We're going to make it this instead. Again, you don't honestly know what the figures are going to be, and it's going to be very difficult to know simply because of all of the stuff that's happening at the moment in the market. The competitiveness of AMD as well is going to be very interesting. I'm going to be curious to see what the prices are for the cost to build these things. I don't know if that's ever going to leak, but it's going to be very interesting to see guesstimates on the bills of materials, because obviously that's going to affect their ability to, well, have margins. You got to presume that the mono die for Nvidia's 102 is going to be pretty expensive. It's over 600 mm squared. But with that said, it's also not utilizing the full die for the 4090. And I have heard that Nvidia are getting reasonable yields, but I don't know. I mean, we do know that the 4090 Ti is definitely a thing. And what I will say about Nvidia's side of things is that it's pretty obvious that, you know, the gulf in specification between the 4080 and the 4090, it's not a gap. It's like, I don't know. It's literally like driving from one side of America to the other. It's like, it's pretty big. That's what I'm saying. It's huge. So you could easily fit in like an RTX 4080 Ti or a 4080 Super or whatever the hell Nvidia decide to do. It's going to be very interesting to see how they segment all of their lineups over the next while, as well as AMD. I'm not saying they will, but I would be less than surprised if we see a refresh as well from both companies. With that said, thank you very much for checking out the video. I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.